Ladies and gentlemen, today is February 4th, 2014, and this is the KNKL Show, episode 162. I'm your host, Keenan Lafferty, and today is Tutorial Tuesday, where we learn to be better artists. And today we're going to be doing a tutorial on creating your own style, coming up with something in your head and literally transmogrifying it onto a piece of paper. But before we get into that, I do need to make a quick announcement. For those of you who are interested in procuring yourself one of these limited edition Emma prints of the first issue, they got the cool authenticity seal and number 80 out of 90. That means we only got 10 left. So if you're on the fence about getting one of these, please consider getting one. You can get one at the Emma Comic Online store. And before we get into the actual tutorial, we need to take a stroll down one of my favorite places on earth. The lovely lane. It's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. Let's go ahead and start scrolling. So yes, thank you to everyone who has submitted your art as always. For those of you who don't know, I will say it once again. Anything that you submit to the Facebook now, if you're watching this on YouTube, the link is down below. Anything you submit to here is now deemed worthy for me to take and draw in my own style on Wednesdays. So I may pick your character and draw it on Wednesdays. And with that, we have lots and lots and lots of fun. Lots of fun. So, yes, and people have been submitting a lot of stuff. So, thank you very much. Thank you very much, guys. It really means a lot to have you guys participating, and hopefully my tutorials can help you out. All right, with all that out of the way, let's go ahead and get into today's talk. So, the first thing that I want to talk to you guys about today is I'm going to take you back in time. I'm going to take you back to when I was illustrating books. Illustrating books for a project called Humbug. Humbug! And I was in charge of coming up with the style, right? The style of this girl, this little girl. Her name was Mimi. And basically the way that this story worked was she had this little box with a cricket inside of it that was basically called a humbug. And what they do is they sing and then they attract the reindeer of Santa to whatever town they're singing in, and she brings it to this frozen town and all that stuff. But anyway, so I had to come up with the style that these characters were going to be portrayed in. And I was a big fan of anime, and I definitely wanted to have some influences in that. But I also wanted to make sure that it was a good blend between like anime influence and still like some Western kind of traditional American illustrative type stuff. Okay, so that was kind of what I was going for with this, and this was the very first thing that I made. Okay, so I'm going to talk to you guys a little bit about some of the things that I went through, and then I'll do a little bit of a demonstration of how I was basically trying to figure out the style of Mimi. Okay, and here's actually the humbug right there. It's kind of badly photoshopped into her hands. I actually drew him separate and then just like stuck it right on there, right? Because in the professional world, you do whatever it takes to save some time and have it still look okay. But anyway, so one of the biggest things that was really kind of throwing me off and just actually really challenging me was these eyes, okay? Because the one prior to this, oh, that's the one after this. Oh, here's a good thing. This is the differences between the two, okay? So this is the first one, and I liked it, but she had like these really tiny little leg things. I don't even know how legs could exist in that small of a space, but didn't matter because they look cute, right? Then I was like, okay, well, we should actually try to figure out what, you know, her body is going to look like, if it should, you know, actually have some semblance of legs. She's got like gnome legs or whatever. But this was one of the other faces that I came up with slightly more realistic eyes, I guess you could say. And I really liked this one, but again, I was supposed to be developing these so that way people could take them and then model them in 3D. So having eyes like this tends to be a little bit, it tends to be very challenging to be able to model eyes like anime eyes in a 3D model type thing. So I went with this. That was a little bit better, but I still wasn't really liking her face. Something about her face was still missing. So then I went to this one here. And I felt like this was when I was really just barely starting to learn the planes of the face. So I was like, oh, hey, well, I can like make the nose kind of come out a little bit. And remember how I talk about that Band-Aid shape that goes right over, you know, the face? That's what's happening right there. And yeah, I was just trying to figure out, you know, I give her little freckles, right? Because I like freckles. I think they're cute. So this was getting closer to what we wanted. And hey, she actually has legs! How about that? How about that? And cute little boots. So this was actually one of the final illustrations that I did where we were like, okay, we're digging this, we're liking this. But there was a problem. This character was supposed to go in line with the frozen people of a town called Winterton, and they're all kind of like scary and tall looking, right? So what I did, like, this is the mayor, right? So they're all frozen and they're blue because they forgot about Christmas. They're not happy people. So this was the mayor, and this is Mrs. Sleet, who is the caretaker of the orphanage. And so I was looking at these faces, right? And I was comparing these faces to this one, and I felt like something was still missing. Like something about the style was not cohesively working. So so I kind of took it in and just kind of like refined it and all that good stuff, and tried to come up with a style or just something that looked like it would go, like these faces would go good with the other ones. Okay, so enough babbling about that. I'm kind of doing a freaking run on. Let's talk about, I'm going to show you guys a little bit of the process that I went through when I was coming up with these faces for Mimi. And you can actually see, I really wish I would have saved the original, because the original drawings that I did, like these ones over here, like these were other styles that I was thinking of for Mimi. But when I was doing the experimentations, by doing that, it gave me the first hint of the style that I was going to be using with Emma, the online comic, and as well as just my anime style. And I'm going to go into that in just a moment. So the first thing I'm going to do, and this is kind of where you guys come in, because a lot of you have been asking, well, how do I come up with a style? How do I figure out how to make people look, you know, like only I could draw them, or, you know, just stuff like that. And really what I want you to do is I want you to focus on a few things, okay? The first thing you're going to be focusing on is head shape, okay? And you can come up with any type of head shape, right? You could draw a bunch of different head shapes. This one's pretty familiar. Yeah, look at that. See, there's Emma's head shape right there. But you can come up with anything, okay? So I'm going to draw a few different head shapes, and then I'm going to show you guys how you can basically drop on the facial features. Maybe come up with a style of your own. So let's do one of these, one of those. And you want to think about these in terms of 3D space, okay? So think about this as like a box or whatever, and we're going to drop our facial features onto that. And this is basically what I was doing when I was coming up with the style for Humbug and Mimi. Okay, so the first thing you're going to want to do is, once you have a head shape, there's so many things that go into a style, and this is just barely scratching the surface, but this might be a good way for you to start figuring out what you want to do. Okay, so once you come up with a basic head shape that you like, I'm going to duplicate this over a couple times, because I like this one. I actually really like this one. So it'll be a good thing to do a experiment with. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to start dividing up your face, right? You want to start dividing up your face, or just like the measurements of the face, and where things are going to lay in, right? So, for example, you could put the nose way down here, and then depending on how much, you know, detail you'd like to put into the nose, you could do something like this. I personally like doing this type of thing, where it's almost like just like the shadow underneath the nose, and then a little line to represent the bridge. I really like doing stuff like that. And then you could do something like a little mouth like that, and then you can have big eyes. Or even, no, let's not do big eyes. We've done plenty of big eyes. Let's do some small eyes. Let's do semi-normal looking eyes. Okay. So this is where you start to basically come up with things. And it all has to do with, I don't know, it really just has to do with experimentation. And when you see something that really resonates with you, you're gonna feel it, right? And there's all kinds of things that you can do with this. Okay, so this is just one example. Okay, and one thing that I like to think about is just sort of having, I mean, it's obvious, but like consistency, right? Consistency. So notice how there's a lot of soft shapes happening throughout here, right? There's a lot of soft rounded edges happening throughout here. You could contrast that, however, with the sharp ear thing that I do on Emma. You know, like that type of thing. But I personally like to try to go for consistency at the beginning, you know, before you try out, I don't know, doing contrasting things, okay? So there's one example of a face that you can make. Now let's go ahead and do a completely different face and a different style, okay? So same head shape. Now we're going to do this. We're going to actually stick the face on the other side, right? And we're going to have something like this. Eye shapes, I think personally, eye shapes will give like the greatest amount of feeling to your character, right? They're going to give the greatest amount of feeling and just like style to your character. Eyes, and really everything adds to it, but I think eyes are one of the biggest things. I'm going to try to do a different nose style because I always do this kind. Let's do a more realistic nose. You can do something like this. You know, and see how you start to come. I mean, these are all very cartoony, but all of these things will, I don't know, this is just the experimentation stage. You're going to start to get a feeling for what you want very quickly. And don't be afraid to start with something. Like, I loved anime, right? So I literally started with anime. This face, this first face, that's straight up anime with like a little upturned nose. Like, that was the only thing that I did differently. And then kind of like the bigger mouth. That's another thing that I've noticed that's really cool about some people's anime styles is they do like really, really big mouths. Because personally, like everybody's seen, you know, the cute anime girl, right, with the big eyes. Big eye anime girl with the small nose and the small mouth, right? Everybody's seen that. But have you seen big eye anime girl with small nose and big mouth, right? I like this. I look at this, I'm like, yes, this is really, really cool. And I think one of the reasons why I like it is because it reminds me of, I'm a big fan of like the old school 1950s cartoons, and seeing like big smiles on characters, it kind of mixes the two genres together. I personally really, really like that. And that's something that I decided to take into my style. Okay, so anyway, let's draw a couple girls' faces. And then I'm going to talk about how I happened upon the style that I began using for Emma. Okay? Anyway, okay. There you go. You got Giraffe Emma right there. Giraffe Emma. So let's take the same face once again. Let's draw. Let's see if we can make an attractive woman out of it. I bet we can. I bet we can. Okay, so yeah, let's go ahead and put the nose down low before, like we did. I really like that. Let's go ahead and leave the forehead like nice and open. I think that would be nice. Yeah. And this is really just me coming up with stuff off the top of my head. It might work, it might not. But the point is, you do your best. There you go. And usually, the easiest way to make it a girl is just give it some eyelashes, right? We are trained from birth and from a young age to realize that eyelashes mean that it's a girl in cartoons. So why not use that to your advantage? Use that to your advantage. And my nose itches, but I took care of that. Okay, I'm actually going to try to change this up a little bit. Okay, so you could do something like this. One thing that I used to do was I used to kind of color the top lip like that, right? And then I used to do this with the bottom lip. And blush always makes everything better too. I'm going to go ahead and slim down the chin just a bit. So then you're going to end up with something like this. And see what I'm talking about? The eyes specifically are really what's adding the most to this style. Okay. And once I finish this, I'm going to go in a little bit more detail. And I'm going to talk about, basically, once you find something that you like, you want to find basically like the rules of your style, the things that you want to follow with basically everything else that you do. And that will lend itself well. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. Ooh, I really like that. Give her a nice thicker neck. Looks really nice. Well, let's give her these ears. Let's give her like these weird kind of like elfish ears. These round elfish ears. She still will have earlobes, but just kind of elfish looking. And then let's go ahead and give her some hair across her face. Oh, I love it. I actually really like this. I like this style a lot. But you can still see how there's like hints of my style in it, like specifically with the nose and all that. But really, you don't need... Here's the other thing that I want to stress to you guys. You can literally, like, I used to look at so many artists, and I literally just took things from their styles that I liked, and I just kind of like molded them all together. And I was like, oh, I like the way that guy draws eyes. Or, hey, I like the way that guy draws, you know, head shapes or hair. And I'll just like kind of take that and just like mush it into this big ball. So really, in the end, what you call an original style really isn't that original at all. It's just kind of like a mix of a bunch of things that you like, and it's just slightly different. So I don't want you guys to feel like, I don't want you guys to get discouraged and be like, oh, my style is just, you know, it's just, I'm a sham, I'm just a copy, I'm a carbon copy of all these people, there's nothing original about me. Nobody is original, okay? Every great thing that has ever been inspired has been inspired by something else. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, there's not that many original things in the world, okay? So don't feel like you have to be completely original. I think that a lot of people get caught up in that, and I think that's bad. I think that's very bad. Really, what you should be focusing on is just doing what you like. And I like to draw girls, so that's what I drew. I drew way too many girls. Way too many girls. But it ended up working to my advantage once I started working at Riot Games. That was all I was in charge of. I was drawing sexy ladies and, well, and zigs, I guess. Alright, so there's an example. Okay, I hope that will help you guys out. Okay, so now the next thing I want to talk to you guys about is defining, like, what are the rules? What are the rules that go into this? Say you drew this and you're like, hey, I like this style, I want to draw more of it, but I want to make sure that the characters now follow these rules. Okay, so now what I want you to do is take a look within. Take a look within and start asking yourself some important questions. Important questions such as, what is the general face shape, right? Because we've drawn this, and we've drawn that, right? And I really think that, you know, when it comes to face shapes, you can do all kinds of different things. As you can see in, like, Emma, the freaking face shapes are all different. You know, like if you were to compare Emma to Tank, see, they're completely different face shapes. Everything's different sized, but there are some things that are very similar. There's similar rules that both of these faces are following. And if you look closely, you can find out what they are. So one of the things that I really kind of think that is a rule with Emma and the style is like playing up like these kind of like sharp edges on certain places, even on the girls. Like, see how Emma's shoulders come up to that point and the ears come up to kind of that point? Same thing, right? Like, it's sort of like a mix. It's that mix between the rounding and then the hard edges. So I think as long as you do that, then your characters will start to look the same. Again, also with the nose, even though Tank's entire nose shape is different, it still follows that rule of, oh, it's just the shadow underneath, whereas Emma's is just this tiny little triangle thing, and his is that full-on, you know, nose. And then also the eyes are squared off. I think the eyes, as they close, they become very square. When they open, they become a little bit more rounded off. And these are things that I'm kind of like figuring out as I go too. I'm figuring stuff out as I go. So yeah, let's take that. Let's take that and let's go back to this. So a couple things that I would say personally with this is, A, you want to pay attention to the nose shape. So the fact that I've drawn the nose like this, you're going to want to, like, this nose would probably not look good with, you know, Emma's little triangle nose. Like if some character came in with this right here, again, nobody calls me all day until I start the show. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Okay, so yes, the more realistic nose, I would say, the size of the eyes. This right here, the fact that this actually comes down into the tear duct, if this is something that you want to keep, this is something that you're going to want to make sure all of your characters have. How it comes down and then it goes into that little tear duct. Okay? Eye shapes, again, open to your interpretation. I think another important thing here is just the overall chin and then the sort of large forehead that's going on here. This large forehead, I personally think, is another thing that contributes to this style. And again, her hair is, responsible partially for the size of her head. And then these ears going up like that. It's almost kind of like a flow. Maybe you want to think about it in terms of flow. See how a lot of things are kind of like flowing into the face? I think that might be a big part of it. Also the lip, how you draw this upper lip like that, and that lower one like that. So this is just a generality, but just pay attention to things that you can make sure are consistent with your style. That way you don't have this right here, and then in the next panel, a stick figure like this is interacting, with them. Okay? The stick figure would not talk to this. Stick figure is too good for that. He would not talk to that. Alright, so with all that out of the way, we're going to go ahead and move into this next part. Because as I was doing things like this, coming up with different face shapes, this is how I happened upon the actual style that I took into my anime style, right? Because I always wanted my own anime style. I always look at all these great anime artists, and I always say, oh, well, a lot of their stuff kind of looks the same. Or, oh, that's that kind of anime artist. A lot of these anime artists tend to kind of copy each other, almost to a fault, where you can't really tell exactly who's who. So I was like, all right, well, I want my own. I want my own style, right? Because everybody wants to be unique. Everybody wants to be different. Everybody wants their own style. So while I was coming up with a bunch of different, face shapes, right? Like, say I just drew some eyes like that, right? That could be a style in itself, like that. Look at that. Super simple, super easy. In fact, I did have a style kind of like this with like really long heads. But the way that I came up with Emma was when I was figuring out the style for Mimi, and I drew this. I literally drew this right here. I drew these triangle eyes. I drew it like that. And I was like, whoa, hey, that's kind of nice. Oh, and I always do this thing where I put like one eyelash on the bottom. That's another thing that I usually do. Another trademark, pay attention to the details. Small details can make a big difference. Small details make a big difference. So I drew this, and I was like, hey, I kind of like that. I think that's really cool. And then I tried to attach it to a body. I was like, you know what? That could work. That could work. Not for this book I'm making, but I'm gonna make that work. I'm gonna use that. Totally gonna use that. So after I drew something like this, right? After I drew that, I took it over to my anime stuff. And now I will show you that. We will delve into the anime thing. In fact, that exact face, I think I took and I stuck it right on this girl. So see how the triangle eye thing was happening? And I also did this thing for a little while I was drawing the not the ear duct, the tear duct. I was drawing the tear duct here. And I thought, yeah, you know what? Not a lot of anime artists draw this line going down or the tear duct. So I started doing that type of thing. And I really liked that. But then I also had to figure out, I was like, okay, so what's the proportions for the body, right? So I spent some time figuring that out. And that's a whole other thing that could go, make this lesson go for days. But I'm going to leave that up to you. Just the same way that we came up with different shapes and things with the faces you can do with the bodies. So moving on, let's go ahead and continue with these. I really liked these. I really liked this face a lot too. But this is when I started to get a little bit more of a feeling of what I wanted to get. And another thing that was really important for me with a style was something that could convey emotion. Something that could convey emotion really, really well. Like you've seen a million times, again, the freaking pool-eyed anime girl with the tiny mouth, right? Or just a little acorn open mouth thing. And I wanted something more. I wanted something more than that. I wanted characters that looked like they had a soul behind them, in a way. I'm not saying that, usual anime girls don't have souls, but actually maybe that is what I'm saying. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Kawaii desu anime girls do not have souls. They are just there to suck your soul away and add it to their collection. But anyway, I've seen enough of this, right? The little hole, right? The little freaking stupid acorn mouth. In fact, Emma makes this mouth sometimes, and I ask myself, I'm like, oh man, why would I draw Emma with that face? But it does look cute. It does look cute, I'll admit. But I use it sparingly. I use it sparingly. But again, going back to this, see how the mouth is much longer? It even has a little bit of a dimple on the end of it there. I wanted to do something small like that would help convey emotion. Here's another one. Here's another example of the usual anime face, right? Big eyes, small nose, and small mouth. But again, I was trying to figure out how the heck do these eyes like open and close? Like if they're triangles, like does this eyelid like fold down here, or how would you even animate this, or how would it even make sense? But I was like, nah, whatever. It looks good enough. I was so excited that I was finding my own style that I just kept drawing it, and it felt right to me, so I just kept doing it. This is Ari and Fio from Metal Slug. Again, just messing around with that style, same thing. And then this was Shade, which is actually another one of the comics that I'm going to be working on in the future. But that is another conversation for another time. So I was really happy with this stuff. And I took this, I kept experimenting with this until we finally arrived at this picture that I drew of Emma right here. So this is where, see how her eyes are still that major like triangle shape? I liked elements about this, but there were a couple problems with the style, and I've gone over this a few times. Another thing that really goes into figuring out what you want to be represented by is if you're going to be doing comics, you have to make sure that your characters are not overly complicated, right? Like drawing this hair. Like if I had to draw Emma's hair like this every single panel, I would probably go jump off a bridge because that just would take way too much time. There's way too much detail in this character. Even with the simplified version, even with the simplified way she is now, it still is tough. It still is really, really tough. So, let's see, how long have we been going? Half an hour. We're going to be wrapping things up, but first, it's time for some question catapults. Please cast your questions over the castle walls, as has been instructed in this video, and I'll answer them. And as we wrap up, we will be, we'll just be talking about the refinements that I made to Emma. Okay, so after that style, I drew this right here. And again, I was trying to simplify, but still there's way too many strands of hair going through here. Way too many. Oh man, just looking at this, like, ooh, makes me cringe, like thinking I have to draw this over and over and over again. But yeah, I really liked this. And this is before I decided to make the zombie blood purple too, so this is actually kind of scary looking with the red blood. And the reason why I changed it, I said this so many times, but I changed it because I think that I've seen a lot of zombie comics, and me personally, I think it's just really weird, specifically when there's like cartoony styled characters with red blood. It looks really like, it just looks very disturbing to me, more so than if it was realistic and red blood, because then it's like, oh wow, look at how realistic it is. But then like happy looking cartoony characters with red blood, it looks so weird to me. I don't know, maybe it's just like, I think I'm just weird, but yeah. So, and I drew this one here too. This was kind of, I personally like to take anime characters, or just characters that have a simple design, and then I like to ask myself, okay, how would this character look if I was to paint it, right? If I was to actually like add some volume and shape to this face, like how would it actually exist in time and 3D space? So that was a lot of fun. And again, just trying to figure out the style of Emma and all that good stuff. And she has a gun. It's way too violent. We can't have that for kids. This is a kids show and this is a kids comic. No guns. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. There's going to be plenty of guns. There's going to be too many guns. Moving on. So really the biggest change happened when I was talking with my buddy Larry Ray, who worked at Riot Games with me. And he helped me to come up with this streamlined style, which is very like animation friendly, I guess, where the whole entire hair shape is now just one block. It's literally like a paper cutout that you just paste on top of the character. And I really liked it because it was super simple. Again, iconic. Everything about this, I felt just, it radiated the style that I wanted to bring to the world. It radiated, yes, someone could look at this and say, that looks like the style of Keenan Lafferty. That's how I feel. I don't know, maybe you guys feel differently. But that's how I feel. That's all that matters. That's all that matters. Just keep telling yourself that. Keep telling yourself that. So, questions coming in. Aliano is asking, do you have any tips on creating interesting characters? Not so much the visuals, but the actual character and their story with their personality and backstory. Awesome question, Aliano. This is something that I had to think about when I was coming up with Emma and all the characters. And I actually went to a workshop by Massive Black. For those of you who don't know what Massive Black is, they're the freaking like leading, this is actually the wristband from it, the Massive Black right there. I went to a workshop in San Francisco where basically the guys that work at this concept art house, which is like the biggest in the industry, every single video game house that wants awesome concept art, they send it to Massive Black. So all the artists put on this awesome workshop in San Francisco, and it was really awesome. And while we were there, they were talking about developing characters. And one thing, a couple things that they said that really caught me, like that surprised me, and it was one of those things where it was like, oh, yes, yes, and I was like taking notes, right? Probably the two biggest things that I think are very important for a character are you should always include their strength and their weakness, right? So what are they good at? They must have a weakness, because in order to be able to relate to a character, they can't be perfect, right? Because humans aren't perfect. You're not perfect. And it's so much easier to relate to a character that has a weakness, as well as like funny quirks or obsessions. If they have like a weird obsession with something, I think that those things are really cool. Like they always, like every time they walk past like a mirror or like a window, they'll always like check themselves out and like mess around with their hat or like fix their hair. You know, like things like that are things that make characters interesting. So yeah, for Emma, it was just, you know, hey, what if she was just like her obsession? I came up with a bunch of different things. I was like, oh, what if she has like this necklace, or maybe it could be her axe, or maybe she's just obsessed with wanting the world to be the way that it was. Maybe she's obsessed with, she keeps going back to wanting to be that little girl, right? Because she never got to be that little girl because she was subjected to this zombie apocalypse. So things like that you want to think about. Hope that helps. Toucans is asking, I'm not sure if community college classes are what I want. I kind of want to go your route. I kind of want to go your route. Do your own thing. I'm sort of on the road, but I was wondering if building recognition is a step that I should take first. Toucans, again, the best way to gain recognition, and I wish I would have said this last time, is A, do contests. Enter art contests, because you will always be placing your best foot forward. Even if you don't win, you are going to improve at an amazing rate. And submit fan art. If you are a fan of League of Legends, you should be submitting fan art to the forums. If you're a fan of anything, like you should be, like you can literally print things out on a freaking sheet of paper. Find out who you want to get in contact with, like the art director of Blizzard. His name is Samwise Didier. I printed out a picture that I did, and then I seriously like mailed it to him. All you have to do is mail it to Blizzard Studios, right, or Blizzard Entertainment, and then just put attention to his name, and it'll get to him. You can do the same thing with Riot Games. You can get really creative. They basically just bypass all that email crap. You can send in your resume and your cover letter and all that stuff too. But wouldn't it be super awesome to actually just have the art director get a package on his desk, pick it up, and then he opens it, and it's this print. He's like, what the heck? Who is this? Right? And there's a little note in there. Be like, hey, I just to let you know I applied to be an illustrator. Thank you for your consideration. Here's my email. Here's where you can, you know, find out more about me. And you may not get contacted back. But the point is that I bet if you keep doing it, and this is what I want to do, I'm gonna keep sending stuff. You know, you can get a job anywhere. You really can. The opportunities are, it's not so much as just send in an email and then hope and pray that someone's going to see it. Make sure that somebody sees it. You know, get creative. Think outside the box. Do stuff like that. So, I'll take a couple more questions and then we are done. Okay, let's see. FX Bandit is asking, what's my favorite anime? I actually didn't watch a lot of anime. I just looked at art. I just looked at a lot of art. I didn't watch a lot of anime, personally. But I really liked, as far as comics, I really like Scott Pilgrim. That's probably one of my favorite comics I've read so far. Let's take one more question. Let us see here. Oh, Great question coming in from Colizions. He's asking, do you ever get into 3D art? Yes, I actually did do 3D art for a little while because I thought that the 2D, basically, like the demand for 2D art was going away because everything was 3D now. 3D movies, 3D games. Nobody was making 2D stuff anymore. No one was doing the classic side-scrolling stuff anymore. And I was stupid enough to think that, well, hey, how do the 3D artists just like make a model? They just like think it up and just like make it out of nowhere? Or do they look at a concept artist's work first to be like, oh, okay, this is what it needs to look like, and then they work off of that? You know, I was so stupid for thinking that 2D art was going to go away. And it never, and the thing is that as 2D gaming went away, it's just coming back with independent games and mobile games. 2D gaming is bigger than it ever has been before. So I don't think that 2D art is ever going to be, you're never going to be hurting for a job as a 2D artist. You just got to, again, you got to get in touch with the people. You got to enter the art contest. You got to freaking send in your art to the art directors. You got to bug people. You have to bug people. And this is probably something I'm going to be going into on Thursday. But with all that out of the way, I wanted to say thank you for joining me live on Twitch for our Tutorial Tuesday. I do apologize for my slight stutteriness. Feeling a little bit out of my element, probably because I'm super anxious about moving into my new place. That was something I forgot to tell you about. I'm going to be moving into my new apartment, new studio. This is going to be, Thursday will be the last time that you see this room. We're going to be moving into our new place, and it's probably going to take me about a week to get everything set up. So I'm going to be taking a week-long hiatus after this week, okay? And I'll keep you guys posted and all that stuff on Facebook, Twitter, and all that good stuff. So people on YouTube, thumbs up if you like it, thumbs down if you don't. Don't forget, I got 10 more of these posters left. I'm never printing these again. Never, ever. So if you get one of these, you are a lucky son of a gun. Please consider checking that out at the Emma Comic Online store. You guys take care of yourselves. I'll see you tomorrow for whatever Wednesday. Drawing your characters. Until then, take care.